just the people I like to talk to. It's the message is a good one, but it's very hard to live, as we all know. I mean, I've never met anybody in my years being here that said, oh, I fast and pray. It was nothing. Oh, heck, I can pray 3, 4, 5 hours a day. You know, just nothing to it. Not met that person. Go ahead. So, talking to Yvonne one day, we were discussing, you know, I was saying, God, this is the hardest message I've ever picked up in my life. And he goes, it's the same for us. He says, I have the hardest time living this message, and it's supposed to be hard. Because the reason is because our flesh does not want to follow that game. When I first went home from Medjugorje, I thought, yeah, I'm going to get on some of this prayer. I didn't plan on even saying a word, but I knew I could pray. But I noticed that every time that I thought it was a proper time, there's a football game on, so tell me. You know, and I was following the world. I first came in '86. It wasn't until 1990 that I decided I was going to actually live this message. I didn't know how I was going to live it. I was going to live, because up to that time I had failed miserably. I was not even saying 1 rosary a day. And after 4 years of coming here, by that time I probably brought 15 to 20 groups here. And that was one of the reasons that I can't be lying to the people if I'm not living this message, you know. But I also knew by that time how hard this message was. And what I was basically told was just to start and ask God, ask Our Lady to do everything. By that time I brought people here, people get gifts here. I brought people here that got the gift to pray, went home and did do 3 hours a day. I knew people that went home and fasted. For everybody, it was different. Like me, I didn't get those gifts. So I just started praying. And I was turned on to the early messages. I was here in the early time, and the people here were converting off of those messages, especially the small prayer group. And there's just so much in here that it's pathetic. Today, being here, many people are confused about, let's say, the 3 events that are coming. These are through Mariana. I'll just going to give a little bit of her statement, and I will read it. This is information which Mariana gave to Father Tomislav Blasic on November 5th, 1983. He conveyed this information to the Pope on December the 16th, 1983. Father Blasic's letter was published in Is the Virgin Mary Appearing in Medjugorje, which I think is one of the finest books ever written on Medjugorje. Paris, 1984. During the apparition of December 25th, 1982, this was Mariana's last apparition. According to Mariana, Madonna confided in her the 10th and last secret, and revealed to her the dates in which the different secrets will be realized. The Blessed Virgin revealed to Mariana some aspects of the future up to this point in great detail, more than the other seers. For this reason, I am reporting here what Mariana told me in a conversation November 5th, 1983. I am summarizing the essentials of her account without literally quotation. Mariana told me, before the visible sign is given to mankind, there will be 3 warnings to the world. The warnings will be in the form of events on earth. Mariana will be a witness to them. 10 days before one of these apparitions, Mariana will notify a priest of her choice. The witness of Mariana will be a confirmation of the apparitions and stimulus for the conversion of the world. And that is a stimulus. Everybody thinks we got chastisements here. No, these are stimulus for the conversion of the whole world. And we living here believe that these are very positive, and that we're going to go to a great time in the church, that many people will enter into this true church, including Muslims, Serbs, Anglicans, Presbyterians, all walks. Okay, after these three events, after the apparitions, the visible sign will appear on the site of apparitions in Medjugorje, for all people to see. The sign will be given as a testimony to the apparitions and in order to call people back to faith. Okay, I'm going to skip some of this. I'm going to go back to, this is where Satan appears to Mariana. A lot of people have forgotten that this even took place. In addition to the basic message, Mariana related an apparition she had in 1982, which we believe sheds some light on some aspects of church history. She spoke of an apparition in which Satan appeared to her. Satan asked Mariana to renounce the Madonna and follow him. That way she could be happy in love and in life. He said the following. He said the following the Virgin, on the contrary, would only lead to suffering. Mariana rejected him, and immediately the Virgin gave her the following message in substance. Excuse me for this, but you must realize that Satan exists. One day he appeared before the throne of God and asked permission to submit the church to a period of trial. God gave permission to try the church for 1 century. This century is under the power of the devil. But when the secrets are confided to you come to pass, his power will be destroyed. Even now, he is beginning to lose power and has become aggressive. He is destroying marriages, creating division among priests, and is responsible for obsession of murder, all kinds of stuff. But you must protect yourself against these through fasting and prayer, especially community prayer, carrying blessed objects with you, putting them in your home, and restoring the use of holy water. Okay, the children here, Mariana is the only one of the 6 visionaries that knew there had been another apparition. I can't remember now if it was Fatima or Lourdes. It's one of those 2. The other visionaries never ever came to earth. This is a very primitive village. Most of the older people here cannot read or write. A lot of people are kind of surprised with that. So this was put into a letter that went to the Holy Father. Father Thomas Lovelassich was involved with this. So in December 16th, 1983, the Holy Father received that information. When they wrote the letter, Yvonne took it to Our Lady and asked her, this is what you want to give to the Pope. She said, yes, that'll do. Okay, nobody here knew anything. This is kind of interesting. But John Paul knew. He knew exactly what was in that message. And he immediately started making steps that were not noted until March 25th, 1984. So, when this started in 83, Our Lady starts the children's prayer group. You remember the children's prayer group, and she directed that prayer group. I'm not going to read all the stuff, but I'll just tell you, by December of 83, and these kids were just started this prayer group, she's already really onto them, fast and pray. When I read these messages, if my child would have been in that prayer group, I would say, you're out of it. No way could the Virgin ever ask young children for what she's asking these children. So as we get towards Christmas, it gets more severe. Pretty soon she's not leaving the messages. All she's saying is fast and prayer. No, I told you to pray more. No, fast more. No, fast 4 days. No, fast 7 days. I'm saying, these are just little kids. All this is leading up and goes into January and in February. Right near the end of February, we see a crack in this program. On March 1st of 1984, we start the weekly messages of Our Lady for the church, the universal church, here and for the whole church. Some great change has taken place. Our Lady is still on with the children until the 17th of March. All of a sudden a message comes across, rejoice, rejoice, a part of my plan now has been realized. What are we talking about plans? Nobody knew until 2 or 3 years later what happened it actually happened on March 25th, 1984. Now the 6 visionaries got that message, rejoice, rejoice, a part of my plan has been realized, on March 25th, 1984. What had happened is the Holy Father had consecrated the world to Our Lady's Immaculate Heart. You can see it happening right in these messages. It's just amazing to me. And it took that long for it to get out. Talking to a bishop here one day, he was a bishop in Czechoslovakia. At that time it was called Czechoslovakia. Spent, I forget, 18, 19 years in prison. Pretty clever guy. He told me how they celebrated Mass and gave communion without the guards catching on until the very end. And what they do is when the men would go to breakfast in the morning, they would take out cigarettes. And they'd tap, in their cells, they'd tap about that much tobacco out of the end. And when they were eating the bread, they would take bread and ball it up and stuff it in the cigarette. So when they left, they gave, each man would give the cigarette to the bishop. He would go to his cell and have Mass and consecrate the bread at the end of those cigarettes. And during the day, they'd be out in the field, and men would come up and ask the bishop for a cigarette. He'd hand them the cigarette, and he'd say, body of Christ, really quietly. They'd take it, and they'd bite off the end that was the bread, the body of Christ. And that's how they were receiving communion. But anyway, this bishop, Hancia, was sent by John Paul II to Russia to consecrate the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And the reason he did this because he tried to do the same program on June 17th, 1981, just before Medjugorje. It failed. The Holy Father was shot on May 13th. He was in the hospital when May 17th came along. Later they found out that a lot of the letters that were going to the bishops were still in the Vatican post office. They weren't all informed like Our Lady had planned anyway. Also they found out that letters that went to communist countries, the bishops were put under persecution. So he decided to send bishops into the communist countries, China, Russia, all of them, and make the consecration. This bishop, Hancia, did the consecration in Red Square on March 25th, 1984. So it was interesting. When he came back, he met with the Holy Father, and the Holy Father told him, he says, why don't you go to Medjugorje? And the bishop said, oh, I don't believe in that false stuff. And he says, well, that's good because I want you to go so you let me know how it is. Needless to say, the bishop had a great conversion while he was here. So, this is kind of like the continuation of Fatima. And that was her plan. Fatima was to consecrate Russia. Now, the term she uses here, a part of my plan has been realized. And Sister Lucy clarified that with John Paul II, that it wasn't exactly what she had said, but it was a part of her plan, was accepted. And she told John Paul II that it was accepted in heaven. How she knew, you only can guess it. Our Lady must have told us. Nothing we can come up with. So, now, how did Medjugorje get started? That consecration failed. But let's go back to Fatima a little bit. I think it bears a little bit on Medjugorje. We do have messages here that about that Medjugorje is a continuation of Fatima. And this is where the consecration comes in. On May 5th, 1917, Pope Benedict the 15th, before Pope Benedict was what, 16th? Okay, it's 15th. Pope Benedict the 15th was the pontiff. We were involved in World War I, and the church had just exhausted everything trying to solve, and it was getting worse. More nations were being involved. On May 5th, he put into the litany of Our Lady the very last phrase. Mary, Queen of Peace, pray for us. He also read a prayer to Our Lady asking her to intervene in mankind because of the situation on earth. A few days later, she appeared at Fatima. Okay? This goes with Medjugorje was the same thing. We have the Pope, John Paul II. He's going to consecrate the world to Our Lady on June 17th, 1981. However, he is shot, and we know Our Lady was involved in that shooting because she directed the bullet. Satan pulled the trigger. And that bullet now is in Our Lady's crown in Fatima. So John Paul was in the hospital. I do know from a Polish Monsignor who was very close to him, I should say was very close to him. He told me the very first thing when John Paul was aware enough to say something, he asked for that secret of Fatima. Very first thing. So the Holy Father was still in bed a month later, on June 17th. He was still in the hospital, had a serious operation, survived it against quite a few odds. He decided to, he couldn't go to Mary Major. He was going to make the consecration in Mary Major. He sent I think it was a bishop there, or a cardinal. Can't remember his name now. But he sent him there, and he had already had a prayer written out to Our Lady. When I read that prayer, I read it for the first time in 2000 when they revealed the third secret of Fatima. That prayer was in there. And I thought, well, what's John Paul II stuff in here for? We're supposed to be about Fatima. But when I read the prayer, just all kinds of lights went off. He was asking Our Lady, not because we were at war, but because the church has so fallen. You know, I go back to 1980 looking at my Catholic Church, because I had just re-entered and was excommunicated for 9 years before I could get back in there. But I noticed how different it was. There was no Blue Army. There was no, these prayer groups, Mary's prayer group, no perpetual hell. The church was just almost not, I could not believe it. And when I first started talking to priests, they were so different. When I had left the church, I could go to 3 priests with the same sin and I get the same answer pretty much, you know. And now it's like, do what you want to do. I was really confused. The good thing is I decided to be obedient to my parish priest. I met with him every Saturday. Anyway, John Paul sends a cardinal down to read this message, and it's about mankind in the shape of the church, begging Our Lady to intervene. A few days later, Our Lady appears in Medjugorje. That, to me, was a real eye-opener. God is really trying to help His church. We get hung up in all these messages. I know, like, a lot of people think that these events are chastisements. You will not see the word chastisements in the book, in the messages. You'll only ever see chastisement, and that will happen sometime after the permanent sign is on the mountain. And the permanent sign will be the last call on earth for the conversion. So it has to be serious. If we take Garbandal, they have 3 events as well. There'll be a sign left in the pines as well. Garbandal's never been approved, but it was never condemned. Kind of the same situation in Medjugorje, because they're waiting for the sign. They believe it, but it's not going to be approved. 1986, Mary told Vitska, Medjugorje will be approved when that permanent sign shows up on the mountain. which I would have believed that would probably be enough to do it immediately. What we're looking for in Medjugorje now is the being approved officially as a shrine. And that'll change a whole lot of things for Medjugorje at that time. Priests will ultimately be able to come here and then come on their own for their own personal, everything will be kind of lifted up. The first commission that was approved did make it a shrine. The Bishop Zanich found a loophole. For one, there is another shrine here called Queen of Peace, just about 20 kilometers away from here. That caused problems with the diocese, you know, and it wasn't done according to the doctrine of the Congregation for Faith. So the church had it back. About 5 years ago, you'll notice that Medjugorje took the word shrine out of their logo, and that was the reason to be obedient to the church, and they should be obedient to the church. God will, if this is really God, it'll all happen. And we all believe if Medjugorje had been wrong in any place. You all know, you've been here a lot of times, you bring people here, some of you, the church would have condemned it long ago, or we have a really ridiculous church. And I believe in my church, and I believe the church will find the right answer, and we will see some of these things happen. Like I said, Miriana will see those that happen, these 3 events. She definitely will be alive. And the priest she picked, Father Petter, I think is 62 now. So, there is a lot of people now here that live here that absolutely are praying for this event to start taking place. Because it's getting hard to live, as almost all of you know. You know, I mean, the things I read in Catholic newspapers, the church is just under a severe attack by the media and everything. But I like to see the media, when the first event happens, it will be said 3 days ahead, so the world will know that there is an event happening. And it will take place. Well, I'll kind of injure the press a little bit, because they'll come down on the church like that. You know, those crazies. What will happen, we assume, is that people who have been to Medjugorje but never really picked up the prayer card or anything, they'll begin to pray immediately. When the second event happens, it's going to affect a lot of people. And it depends on what these events are. If Garbandal writes, like I said, they have one event the one seer knows, and she published it. And that's it. Man will see himself. He'll see his sins, and he'll know that God exists and there is a true church. Well, if that happens, that's going to bring a lot of people into the church. A lot of people. So a lot of people kind of think that Medjugorje is kind of negative. I feel the opposite. I think it's very positive. And when we get to that sign, over what that sign is on the hill, we know there'll be a lot of miracles involved of it. All the visionaries take that part. Same with the sign in the pines in Garbandal. There's a man, I think he's 82 years old, he owns a garbage company in New York. Our lady had told him at Garbandal that he will be healed. Joey. Right. And so that's, and we also know that one of the visionaries there is now, Maria, is now deceased. Lupus. So, yeah, she's the main seer. So, and there's other places around the world. Cabejo, there's one seer still seen there. I was kind of surprised. It's still going on. So, Our Lady picked this place. How she picked it, I don't know. It might have a lot to do with the cross, because it said it was in God's plan. There is a piece of the real cross in that place. Our Lady states that she prays there almost every day. And I always encourage my groups, if I saw anything funny about that cross, spinning, turning black, just appearing, just the shaft there, stop immediately and really pray. And I was amazed how many people saw Our Lady up there. How I found this out is through the old people here. I had an experience myself in 1988, coming up to the house. There was a grandmother and a little girl. Grandma's long gone. The little girl now is a mother with three children. And one of them's in high school, so it's been a while. And as the lady came across, she motioned to me, she pointed to the cross and just went, pray. Well, I was in a hurry. Where was Joe? Well, I did pray. But I stopped and motioned like I was praying. Didn't fool Grandma. So after there for a minute. I said, man, I gotta get going. And I went to turn, and this time she went really loud. I turned, and her face was just like, she went, pointed to the cross. I said, okay, you don't want an international incident here. I will, and I did pray that time. And make a long story short, I've seen Our Lady, I've seen a ball of light, I've seen somebody moving in the light, and I've seen Our Lady. She looked like Fatima with no gold. She didn't say, oh, hi, Joe. She didn't say anything. She just stood there with her hands like this, looking up where the cross was. The light was so bright that, so that was, and after I went to the house and I talked to the grandpa and grandmother at the home I was, they go, this is what we've been trying to tell you, but we can't talk to you. And that if you see anything at the cross, stop and pray. So now we get into the messages. We know that these three events. The prayer group, also I'll say something about the early days, is that most people that came here wanted to go home and start prayer groups. Now that's completely different today. And I can't tell you how many prayer groups are still going in the area that I brought people, and how Medjugorje affects people. 3 years ago, I went down by Mexico. I have a brother that lives in Yuma. And I spent some time in Las Vegas. I have a house there. And visited my brother, and I thought, I'm going back up to Seattle, and I'll just stop, take my time, go to daily mass as usual. By that time, I was definitely in the daily mass. Every place that I stopped in that, 1,200 miles, there's people that have taken the Medjugorje as mass. And it was really something to see people, even with children on Saturdays, because one of the days was Saturday. Our Lady had done all that, changed the inside of people. And of course, like most of the people that I'm still in contact with, we're all suffering. We suffer because the church is suffering. We don't understand it. At the beginning, a lot of us had, like me, when I first really got into the church, in 1989, the church did accept me into the church. I had a lot of consolation, that real fire and glow. It lasted for quite a few years. But now that's a spark. Because a lot of it has turned to just inner suffering, but I know what's going on. And I know I can offer that up, for anything. So some of the interesting things about these messages. Our Lady has said one of the messages, I believe it was on July the 10th, 81, there is only one mediator, Jesus Christ. Even her prayers go through Jesus to the Father. When we pray for one another, our prayers go through Jesus. We use her, they still go through Jesus to the Father. He is the only mediator on earth. Another message is that she says that she was assumed into heaven alive. Doesn't make any difference. The church never said that she was in dormition. The church never said she died. All the church said, we believe in the assumption into heaven. So that doesn't really change anything. She said that her birthday was August 5th. In 1984, she was 2,000 years old. And that has caused some difficulty in the church. Not that the church has said that the 8th of September is absolute day. The church knows better than that. But it does mean that things are changing. People start lining up dates and all kinds of things take place. But here, Medjugorje was a terrific day. It was a day that the priest could not talk here. But Our Lady asked for fast and prayer. Many of the young people of this village spent their time in the mountain up here for 3 days, hot as heck. I can tell you, I spent 3 weeks here with 118 degrees Fahrenheit. That's above 45. So they can get really hot here. They stood up there. And when the evening mass came on August 5th, the priest couldn't talk. And that's the last time that I know that she officially appeared in the church as well, was on that very day, and thanking everybody. Up until just a few years ago, about twice a year, she would appear over where the statue is over there, Our Lady of Lourdes, the Immaculate Conception. But, the bishop had made a complaint about that, and since his complaint, she has not appeared over there.
Where's that too?
It's a statue in the church. Obviously, she's obedient too. Which the church doesn't understand it. He's so obedient, why don't you just tell her to leave? But anyway, she's here because of God. She also says that I cannot heal anybody. I've never healed anybody. My son heals. I do petition him just like you petition him. There is at least 6 messages in here about healing, and I just cannot believe they're not around today. Because in the early days, there's children here that were healed by these messages. Basically, they're a little bit different, but almost the same. If you will firmly believe, say 7 Our Fathers, 7 Hail Marys, 7 Glories Bees, and the Creed, with a firm thing that the person will be healed, and especially if it's a family together, God most likely will heal that individual. And yet healings are just temporary. Eventually we will go home. And it makes no difference to God. And we know by Scripture that most of the people were healed by faith. And that faith is hard to come by. Another message. You need to pray to have your faith increase. The 3 things I still pray for is faith. Increase my faith. Heck, I can't move a paper cup, let alone a mountain. So I know I'm not there. And not that I want to, because I'm afraid if I did move something that pride would set right in. I'm deadly scared of pride. So these are all little tidbits. I call them tidbits. Here's one that Leo and I discussed yesterday. I've come to call the world to conversion for the last time. After this, I will not appear anymore on earth. Now this is one of the controversial messages here, and it's interesting. All you have to do is talk to the visionaries and they'll sort it out. Biska and Yakov both heard Our Lady say, this is the last time I'm appearing on earth. Okay? Miriana, Ivan, Ivanka, and Biska all heard Our Lady say, it's the last time I'll appear on earth like this, basically, in this way. So what does the church do? Biska and Yakov will not change that message. This is what we heard, this is what we print. If we change it, then we're changing the messages. And this is what has hurt so many visionaries throughout the world, changing messages. Well, no, I know God made an error there. You know, I have. As soon as you do that, you have taken and put the jeopardy into it. Father Gopi had him take out the word Medjugorje out of one of the messages because they had such an adverse effect of people who were totally against Medjugorje. You know, either you're for it or you're against it. So they took it out of the messages. Now, in their final book that they came out with, it's back in there. So it's you know, and because they were in a catch-22. If they change the message, then wait a minute, God has erred in the message and man has corrected it. You know, and this is how they look at the messages here extensively. Don't think these messages are not being gone through. Living here, we see things that people don't see. There's a priest, a Franciscan that comes here. He's a secretary to the general in Rome. And he is changing Medjugorje. He's been coming for 2 years, and it shows you the Vatican's very nearest to Medjugorje, and they see some slight problems. Okay? They're all living here, we all know there's problems. One between the bishop and the Franciscan. And people will know in the last 2 years that is starting to shift a lot. On June of this last year, the bishop came up for confirmation, 2nd year in a row where the kids weren't going to hell. You know, hearing this stuff here is really hard. You know, in fact, he made a statement. He made a statement: if Pope Benedict XVI proves Medjugorje, I will absolutely believe. I could not believe that the bishop said those words. So, and the healing is taken more and more. The bishop now assigns the pastor to this church. Before, the Franciscans assigned. After 2000, that all started to change, and it's because of the Vatican's interest in Medjugorje, and also in the diocese here. And a lot of people don't think they have problems with the bishop. I don't know why he doesn't believe. To me, it's really simple. But he absolutely does not believe. However, some of the work that he does here is incredible. I was supposed to feed gypsies yesterday, and I asked Leo if he wanted to come down and feed 30 families. But gypsies are kind of they're kind of a hard people to get along with. We've been just fortunate to be in this one, we call it the garbage dump. They live in just pieces of wood, you know. There's no really structure there. They collect scrap metal. They do a good job. They collect and they beg in the summer when all visitors are going down to the old town. So for the last 3 years, we've been going down there with food just before Christmas and also just before Easter, because it's really hard in the winter because they're getting begging is almost non-existent. So we went down yesterday. Had a phone call just as I came out of mass, and it said there's a problem that they're threatening to destroy anybody that comes in there to get food. So they called the Red Cross. I know the man who's in charge of the Red Cross. He's great, really good Muslim. And I drove down with the intention of giving that food, but also praying to Our Lady. Obviously, there could be a change in plans here. Where do you want the food to go? So I met with the people down there in Mostar, the interpreter. All of us just said it at the same time. Holy Family. Holy Family is a dual place, sponsored by the bishop. They get absolutely no money from any place other than Caritas of Europe. Italians give some. I know that some people from Austria, the churches there are helping this. On the top floor, they have people of all ages. The youngest people there now are about 9 months. There's about 2 boys there. They're twins, and they'll never function in their life. One of them we just found out yesterday is blind. This place is just full of people. The oldest guy in there is a lawyer. He caught some virus in his brain, bacteria infection. He's literally a vegetable, except that he's starting to respond to some commands. I know yesterday I heard him say "Dobro Ruta," I mean not Dobro, but Dobro Don. So he's more and more he's responding. Surprise yesterday, there's 2 Catholic priests in here now. One of them is extremely bad shape, and I don't know where they came from. I'll be finding that out later. And one of them is already responding to treatment. You have to understand, here it's not like at home. We had a priest here in Medjugorje, young priest, Father Bojo. Anybody remember him? Curly, black curly hair, young. Didn't show up all of a sudden. He was assigned here. So we started asking, where's Father Bojo? Oh, he's sick. Next thing we hear, he's dying. You gotta be kidding me. He was in the rectory. During the night, I mean, this caused a stir here. During the night, they went in and literally kidnapped him, had an ambulance waiting here, and the people here drove him all the way to Zagreb. They found what was wrong with him, and almost he was so close to death. See, here they just think that's normal. Well, they can't do nothing, they'll just let him die. When I look at these 2 priests yesterday, I was thinking just those very same things. They figured, what must be their time, you know. Medicine is just starting here, real medicine. Nobody here knows CPR, not even in the hospitals. You know, so it's I've been in mass with people that die right next to me. I thought about doing CPR, but they ask her, what for? They have a whole different concept. They just let you die a lot here, which, you know, part of it maybe is okay. I mean, heaven is our home. So, but you can see their attitude towards sickness here can get in deep trouble, and that's what happened to Father Bojo. Today, he is the secretary to the general of the Mostar province. He comes up here sometimes. He's still very young, and but boy, sure looks good. After seeing him after he came back from the hospital and was out for a few weeks. So that's the mentality here. Discussed this yesterday too. One of the messages: there will be no third world war. Okay, and I'm going to bring in a message where there almost was. In the early messages, I know in Father, the French priest who wrote that book, is Mary appearing in Medjugorje, is the Blessed Virgin Mary appearing in Medjugorje. One of his early messages was, I've come to keep the world from destruction. Now that message is only in a few places today. Why they did not like that message, I have no idea. But anyway, it rang some real bells with me. The Soviet Union fell in 2000. The last flag was taken down from the spaceship, Space Lab, or what did they have up there, on New Year's Day 2000. And officially Russia started. Well, at that time they started having dialogue. Excuse me, that's 1990. The flag came down, excuse me. They started having dialogue with the United States. It was sad because we were telling them who some of our spies were, and they were telling us who some of their spies were. I thought, boy, putting people out on a limb, you know. But one of the things in there that they said that they were going to nuke the United States in 1989. Now that rang some real bells. And I thought back of that message of Our Lady, come to save the world from destruction. When the paper, it was printed in the newspaper, and they printed the whole thing. Even the most important target was, the second target was the town that I lived in. And the first thing I checked up to see if I was in Medjugorje, and I wasn't. So what happened is in 1986, they decided at that time to nuke the United States. The date was July of 1989 would be the date. So during 86 and 87, they sent all the multi-warhead missiles that held 10 nuclear bombs in each head back to the factory to be reworked because, as everybody knows, the Soviet Union's work was not very good. So they wanted this to have a great effect in their thinking was they knew they were starting to fall. And they thought if they fell that the United States would nuke them as soon as they figured it out. So while all those missiles were in the factory, they got them from the submarines, at land, every place. They brought them all back there. And that factory blew up. And it blew up on May 13th, Fatima Day, 1988. You can check this stuff out. To this day, nobody knows. The thing that I have remembered about that date is that the Soviet Union and the United States had just signed a treaty of no more underground testing. And at the United Nations, we were furious that they had broken that treaty and did underground testing. But there wasn't any. And they never, and then when they say there wasn't, then we asked them, then what was the explosion? They would never tell us, because then they thought they really were vulnerable. So somebody, also, being the Marian year, another plus, it's very possible Our Lady had intervened. Unfortunately, 350 engineers working on those were also killed in that explosion. But we can see things in the background, just like the consecration to the world, to the Immaculate Heart. Things really changed. Medjugorje took a big switch there. First with the weekly messages, and later with the monthly messages. So, Our Lady is there. I'll go read this one. Purgatory. One of the things the Lady did here in the early days, very early, took the children to see heaven, hell, and purgatory. Two of the visionaries did not want to see hell, so they did not see hell. two of the visionaries have seen hell twice. That's Yaakov and Esau. What she says about hell, I'll just read it quick. Men who go to hell no longer want to receive any benefits from God. They do not repent, nor do they cease to revolt and to blaspheme. They make up their minds to live in hell and do not contemplate leaving it. Regarding purgatory, in purgatory there are different levels. The lowest is close to hell, and the highest gradually draws to heaven. It is not on All Souls Day, but on Christmas Day, that the greatest number of souls leave purgatory. They are in purgatory souls who pray ardently to God, but for whom no relative or friend prays for on earth. God makes them benefit from the prayers of others. It happens that God permits them to manifest themselves in different ways, close to their relations on earth, relatives on earth, in order to remind men of the existence of purgatory and to solicit their prayers to come close to God, who is just but good. Majority of the people go to purgatory. Now she's talking all mankind, not Catholics. Most of the people go to purgatory. Many go to hell. A small number go directly to heaven. This pretty much goes right along with the teaching of the church. The thing that we've been hearing lately is about the two museums for souls in purgatory, these things. They're both in Italy, one's in Rome. These have all of a sudden caught on. Now, one of the manuscripts that was left in there, I have read. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It matches pretty good with this other book that was done in Medjugorje by Sister Emmanuel. That they kind of, same kind of thing. That souls do come, they only can come if God lets them come. And some of the things in the manuscript was written actually by a nun in purgatory. She was like in where the fire is, started. And some of the things in there were quite revealing. One was a man who was drawing, was an artist and drew a picture of a nude woman that was just more than nude, very suggestive. And he was in there because anytime that picture was on display, and anytime the people looked at it and had bad thoughts, he's paying the price. And so he asked a relative, he was allowed to go back and ask the relative, get that out of the gallery and have it destroyed at any cost. So those are the kind of things. And even in my own life, I know now that I've had people come and ask me for prayer. And to me, it's always dreams. I'll have a dream, and I'll have a dream about somebody in there that I hadn't seen in 30, 40 years. And now I know that I need to pray for that person. And maybe we'll start a prayer for that person. I've never visually seen a soul. Never happened. I did have a soul come and thank me one time only. And it was, I've been married twice. It was my second wife. She was killed in an automobile accident. And she had basically left the church. And it had bugged my kids for years. I think Mom's in heaven, you know, and oh man, you know, she wasn't a good person, Dad. But, you know, God is all merciful. You'd almost have to, like Elaine said, you'd almost have to go to the hell on your own. And St. Faustina says, you even are the worst sinner. Lady says that in here too. You are the worst sinner. And you go have a good confession, get absolution, go to communion, you can go straight to hell. And that is, we always think the worst. I'm going to give you a prime example because we're probably all guilty. Fatima, third secret. Remember we all knew what it was? Oh, there's going to be a chastisement on the earth. Oh, God's going to get us for good, you know. Everybody thought it was a chastisement. And then when it was revealed that the Holy Father would be shot and basically killed, some people were very disappointed. Some believe the church lied. Absolutely lied. Why would the Holy Father lie? I mean, I just don't understand people. But we are guilty among ourselves. We all think we're getting chastisement. That's why the chastisement story always goes around good. because we know we're all guilty of sin. We all fall short of the glory of God. But this God is all, A-L-L, merciful. And I cannot go to heaven without it. There's nothing I can do to pay for my own crimes.
The souls that came to you, Joe.
Well, the one to thank me was my wife. And it was on, I can remember the date, January 16th, 2005. I just heard here Father John Chisholm just announced that the Vatican had announced the year of the Eucharist. And during the year of the Eucharist, if you go to an hour adoration, you could get a plenary indulgence or use it for a soul in purgatory. First thing I thought was Sharon. I said, you know, she was a good woman besides all her faults. You know, she got into drugs. What can I say? We're not who we think we are when we go too far with alcohol or with drugs or whatever. So I thought, you know, I will offer this up for her. Even at adoration near the end, I knew she had come. I mean, I just was beyond myself. I walked home that night. I lived quite a ways out here. And even at 1 in the morning, I was still going. I could still feel her presence in Thanksgiving. That I did this prayer to get her out. Actually, God got her out. I just did the prayer. And that's the loving God that we have. Also, let's go through this one. 160. I love this one. Because we are Catholics, and this is going to prove our role in the Catholic Church and why we are here. This is another message that's not well accepted here.
I got it here this morning, or the earliest last night.
Responding to the confusion of a Catholic priest over the cure of an Orthodox child. And I can tell you, there's priests here today that still don't believe that Muslims and Serbs should be going to heaven. But most of them do. This is from the old school. And the lady's kind of sharp here. Tell this priest, I love that. Tell this priest, tell everyone that it is you who are divided on earth. The Muslims, the Orthodox, for the same reason as Catholics, are equal before my son and me. You are all my children. Certainly, and make sure you hear this, certainly all religions are not equal. But all men are equal before God. As St. Paul says, it does not suffice to belong to the Catholic Church to be saved, but it is necessary to respect the commandments of God and following one's conscience. Those who are not Catholics are no less creatures made in the image of God and destined to rejoin someday the house of the Father. Salvation is available to everyone without exception. Only those who refuse God deliberately are condemned. That quotes Sister Faustina also. To him who has been given little, little will be asked for. To whom has been given much, and it has in parentheses, to Catholics, very much will be required. It is God alone, in his infinite justice, who determines the degree of responsibilities and pronounces judgment.
What's the date of that one?
Yeah.
It might be January 1st, 1985. That's right. The next message is January 2nd. So, this message was good for me because I always could not understand how God could put a soul into a Muslim and not going to heaven. I mean, how could God put my soul in the Catholic family? I had a great chance of going to heaven, but not the soul in the Muslim family. I always had problems with that. You know? And I knew that we're all made by the same God because we eat the same, we produce the same. Everything is the same no matter who we are on earth. which tells me there's only one God. If there's more than one God, we have somebody eating to the side of their head, you know what I mean? You probably think, I think I'll make this a little more different, you know? But it's obviously with the same God, just different. So what about the Catholics? Fatima, back to my good old Fatima. She said it all there. If you will say the rosary, there won't be another more terrible war. But if you don't say the rosary, there'll be another war. And a sign will be given, and we'll see that sign. The whole world saw the sign.
Which they haven't done.
And that was illumination of the earth during the night.
I think that would be enough.
Of course, the newspapers in the world said it was Aurora Borealis. But Lucy knew immediately that.
I don't miss that, like.
First of all, she said a very special word that she says here, rosary. How many Muslims say the rosary?
Room for interpretation.
How many Jewish people say the rosary?
In other words, can you get
Hindus.
intention of the law there?
Hare Krishna.
Having to be literal.
Only one basic people really get into the rosary. Yes, some Protestants do say
I
the
struggle
rosary.
with this.
It's not kind of Muslim do it, it's not saying the rosary. But that is Catholic. We are responsible. We could stop World War II.
I don't know.
But as here, Satan comes and pushes us off of this mess. And the same thing here. All souls in purgatory. It's up to us to get our Protestant brothers and sisters off. Because we're the only one that can do it. We don't believe. In Maria Suma's book, she said how Protestants stay in purgatory a lot longer because they don't have people to pray for them. They don't even believe it.
Wouldn't that be Methodist and born again Christians and everybody?
Anybody that doesn't believe praying for the dead. See how special you are? More is given, more is required. Get people to pray for the dead. You know? And the church is correct. When they get out, they'll not stop ceasing praying for you while you are on earth. Satan waters down our faith to the point where we don't believe. This is why I like these messages. They have totally rekindled my faith. I left the church, got married outside the church in the second wife. Felt terribly, and I was the little boy that said the rosary, going to school, coming home from school. In May and October, we also said it after dinner, a lot of times during the night.
Could we step for the...
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
We don't believe in purgatory.
Oh, no. And purgatory really makes sense, that we have to clean ourselves up to look more like Jesus. I mean, but you can see the work of Satan and how clever he is. You know, even in our own church, he's weakened it. But we do have everything. How many churches have incorruptibles? I'm sure you must have a few in Ireland. I've not checked on Ireland, but I'm sure we've got to have some incorruptibles. We just had our first in the United States. You know, but there's one in Dubrovnik that when I used to take groups out that way, and we always used to stop there at St. Blaise and see the incorruptible.
I think getting into Patricia would probably be the fourth of
That's okay, because it's possible.
But that way, when they're alive, so why not go down the window and
Yeah, but it's possible. So that's the bottom line.
Probably said you're the first girl from there.
What really got me is that when I, following this, I got into the passage and things were like, they knew them by their love. I was a guy that was raised not to get evil. I'm a good Catholic family. We were raised to get ahead. They step on you. That's really step on it. I still pray for a few people, I'm sorry. But Satan did that number. I can remember deciding that I needed to look like I was a Catholic on the wall. I bought a statue of the Sacred Heart, about this big, put it right out on the front steps, you know, where everybody put some stuff behind and make it look good, lit up at night, of course. I didn't hear a word of any of my neighbors. It was really disappointing. I thought they'd be over it. Hey, what the hell's going on here? Because I was a CID Catholic. totally
did you live?
undercover. Washington State. It's the only thing we have common with Ireland is our weather, except we're not getting that much snow right now. It's one day I had the postman come over, and he had a letter that I had a sign for him. When I opened the door, he looked in and goes, do I gender flex? Well, that was the new Joseph. I was definitely into my face. I was no longer CIA. Everybody knew then that I was Catholic. Anything happened in my neighborhood, a death, I wanted to be the first one there. I don't care if there was a neighbor that threw their dog junk on my yard or what. I decided to treat everybody with love. No, didn't want to ever again have hatred and anger. And every Sunday at Mass, I hear this priest say these words.
When you say CIA, that sounds.
Huh? Well, secret, what does the CIA stand for? Central Intelligence Agency. Undercover throughout the whole world. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's part of being a Yank. So Medjugorje started changing my life. We started prayer groups all through our area. When I'd bring people here, they'd go to confession, and the priest would tell them, you cannot go back to your diocese. You cannot be Catholic here. Our bishop had taken on the Holy Father. He was having homosexual masses. It was just bad, just believe me. We lost most of all of our statues were taken out of the church. The Fatima statue, pilgrimage statue, was not allowed in the diocese. I can tell how bad it can be. He didn't reassign 1 year 17 diocesan priests because they were too near me. Just didn't assign them, so they were out on their own. We prayed and we prayed for these little prayer groups of what happened. Our Lady had it under plan. We've had 2 bishops sent in. Eventually, the Vatican sent him down. They gave him the choice of either having his collar pulled or retire, and he chose retirement. But it wasn't for the homosexual masses and all the other distractions. He was stealing large sums of money by selling church property. Didn't take him at all, but he was taking a good portion. That people did get him on that. So we went through 2 bishops. Our last bishop, he wanted to stay on as bishop. He's 75. The Vatican said no. He'd made a no-no with John Paul II. I knew that was going to happen. Wasn't a bad man. I brought our diocese up quite a bit. But this time, all the prayer groups, once it was said that the church would not let him go by the 74th birthday, we knew we'd get another bishop. All these little prayer groups started to pray. Well, I got news. We have the best bishop in all the world. He is rated. We already know that most likely within 2 years he'll be cardinal. And he'll probably be cardinal of Chicago. But right now, he is making it. He's very prayerful. You see him before Mass, out there praying before Mass. I mean, he is the real, genuine. And so who would have believed that it's these little prayer groups brought up by Mary that everybody said they were so stupid. And God bless the few people that still were in the Blue Army and these little Marian groups who were still praying, who were all over, now on that. It was so important. So they kept Mary alive in our diocese. The Byzantine Church eventually brought Our Lady's statue to our diocese through their bishop in Los Angeles. But our bishop had told all the priests, if you go, you're finished. Imagine how bad it can get. And now we are very Marian in our diocese over the last 10 years. I can't believe the change. First thing that happened, we didn't have enough priests. They were getting ready to ordain women. That's another thing that they were already training these old nuns to take over parishes. Some women did take over parishes, but not as priests, but as, what do they call those? When priests came, they actually had power over the priests, but they couldn't concentrate on anything like that. But they were training them to do that. And all that just changed. And then it went the other way. They had to call in priests from Africa, different places, Poland. But somehow, God let us have some of the best priests Then the diocesan priest couldn't figure it out. What happened to all my people who were going over the church down there 15 kilometers away? Well, because they were preaching the truth down there, the people were attracted to the truth. So now we're in a diocese that's just blooming. So don't ever give up on your country. We had a big pedophile problem with the priests. Over 45% of our priests confessed to being homosexual. Of course, that had a lot to do with that bishop. And those are the ones that confessed. I always figured probably more than 50 because a lot of them didn't want to know. So it's a completely changed situation. And we used to get one vocation, likely every 2 or 3 years. Last year there were being 14 involved.
Yeah, that's true.
So it can show you. Prayer is the thing. Don't ever give up on your priest. Pray for your priest. I've always felt in our diocese, the pedophiles and all the problems we have, because people stop praying for the priest. We are also responsible. So. But we are Catholic. We are more than we think we are. We're only limited by what Satan keeps rubbing us. We know this is coming from Medjugorje. Each time we need to think, this time I'm really going to try harder. I'm even going to make that do the morning first from now on. You'll have to understand, and it's in the message book. The lady says he comes and pushes you off of it. And that's what he's supposed to do. Protect yourself. That was my big mistake early on. There's a couple messages here regarding cures. I cannot cure. God alone cures. Pray. I will pray with you. Believe firmly. Fast. Do penance. I will help you as long as it is in my power to do it. God comes to the help of everyone. I am not God. I need your sacrifices and prayers to help me. Faith cannot be alive without prayer. That's another true statement. The Mass is the greatest prayer of God. You will never be able to understand its greatness. That is why you must be perfect and humble at Mass, and you should prepare yourselves for it. To the priest who asks if it is preferable to pray to Our Lady or to Jesus. I beseech you, pray to Jesus. I am his mother, and I intercede for you with him. But all prayers go to Jesus. I will help, I will pray, but everything does not depend solely on me, but also on your strength and the strength of those who pray. Later she says, if you consecrate yourself to me, pray through me. But if you don't, pray basically to Jesus. And right after these messages, it's on March 1st, 1984, Our Lady started giving the weekly message to Maria Pavlovich for the parish. And so I'll close with something about Caritas. Being from the United States, Caritas has not helped us. They're in conflict with the church all the time. I do believe in these messages. I know the parish has asked that all the messages before March 1st, 1984 cannot be passed on. Well, I don't believe that. In those messages, and most of them that we did right here came from that time. I converted off of those messages. Yes, I still use the other messages. They've helped me immensely. And just hearing questions about Our Lady, what she does, what she doesn't do, they just don't want to be answered. And now, since 2000, for those who have been coming longer than that, who knows that the priest cannot speak on any messages at all. And they're obedient to that, and that is good. I accept that. But I know that most of these messages I got out of early books that were written, also documentaries, called the John Bertolucci, the Kerensky family. All that is gone somewhere now. and aware of that information. So I know these messages are true. In this book, with the locutionists, there is, it'll say, see keynote, page 574. And it's a part of 85, and a part of 86, that almost all those messages are under that keynote. I'll read the keynote. And this is where the church said that the messages should not begin to, but not all the messages are keynote. And the keynote basically is they don't know the exact time. No. All but some of the messages are through a third party, usually a parish Franciscan, which I know that's where they got these messages. The first time that this Caritas printed the messages, they were in favor with the Franciscans. The first time they were published out on sale was 1990, a long time ago. Some of the messages have been mentioned in various talks and may have been reworded for the exact way Our Lady gave them, perhaps for the sake of clarity or for our generalization of the message, or for making a point of a certain subject. The substance of the messages is correct. However, some of the dates may be approximate. And there's only 2 sections in the book that falls under. And you can just skip those messages if you want to be safe. Caritas has a hard time with the church here, vice versa. And I've talked to Father Svetozar, and they get really upset.
How are you doing?
You know, this Mary TV over here, I'm trying to go for you. It's another organization.
Father,
Been here from the early days. And because of Caritas, they can't get the approval. But now the Irish Medjugorje IE is now doing the evening programs. So this other place has been trying to get it up and running. They have the money, but because of Caritas, and it's true, not all their books are church. The Holy Church has problems. The one about husbands, that's in question with the Holy Church and theology. I know Terry, we have gotten into it a few times, and I've called back and said, you know, you said the wrong thing already, we never do that. And later they descend. The part I don't like, they're into money. He is a millionaire, and he's very good with money. I love the book. I'm not going to say that I don't. But when they wanted to print this more steadily, they sent their people to have what they call guardian angels, who get so much money. And they were going to build a chapel where they're in Alabama. And they were going to build a chapel there. They asked the guardians for all kinds of money to build the chapel. Well, that wasn't the truth. The truth was they're building a printing place, offices for their organization. At the end of that building, yes, there was a chapel. But they didn't tell the people they were asking for money. They've always had a money issue. You know that when Maria went there to give a kidney to her brother, they set that up. They made millions. Also, just 3 winters ago, Maria was injured in Italy in a ski accident. Because they had Satan went out of control and God. And Maria isn't going anywhere without God. They sent out information. I also got that information. If you will send us your name and so much money, we'll take your name and put it at sort of Maria's bed. So when Our Lady comes, you'll be represented. And with that, is just to me, it's too far. So there are people that are here at Caritas. They're legitimate. They're good people. They're prayerful people. But the owner and the establishment does have some problems. And I don't know who the friend of Medjugorje is, but he's made some error. They've done some great stuff too. I kind of, you know. So.
Can I ask something? In Ireland, at some point, say the message for Our Lady where she said, I will not appear on earth in this way again. Some say she said, I will never appear on earth again.
Correct. And she gave
which is correct?
both. To the visionaries, she gave it one way.
Yeah.
The other 4 visionaries, she gave it the other way. And no one's going to change it because they'd be tampering with the messages. However, if you look at...
But it means that she will never appear again.
Well, it can be either way. But let's say it's the other way, in this way. Well, this way is she's appearing like she does at every apparition.
Yeah.
So basically, to me, it's still the same. She won't be appearing in that way, so maybe she'll appear in a locution form into people, but she won't be appearing as the children will see her in
Or maybe she means it's the first time she's ever appeared every day for 30 years.
Well, there's been a couple operations she appeared for quite a long time. That's one of the problems here. Talking to the Vatican, they have no problem with the length. Like you said, Padre Pio had visions for 60-something years. Maria Alcorn, pardon pronounce your last name, but anyway, Sacred Heart, she had visions for longer than that. So it's, you know, the church is not, the length, like the church has nothing, it's the content. Like I said, when that sign comes, and I think we all believe here that when that sign comes, that's the thing. But the thing that I gave my pilgrims were these little slips of paper of the 5 things to do. These are the things, if we can just do this, we're all going to be in heaven. Bottom line, whether we believe in Medjugorje or not, these are the greatest messages. I mean, I cannot believe, and it went to confession, you can pass those down, everybody wants some, just to grab. I had no idea the glory of confession. What church can you go and have your sins? And we see it in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, also from holy people and saints, that once our sins are forgiven, God remembers them no more. Now, what kind of deal is that? I mean, yes, we have to be buffed up. We still have the scar of that sin, the dirt of that sin. You know, and then we have indulgences. And a couple times a year we can get a plenary indulgence. August 2nd, Divine Mercy, the week preceding All Saints. You know, we can go to the cemetery and get indulgence for our friends in purgatory. I keep a very strict list of who I'm going to get. I was very disappointed because my mom just died on December the 7th. And that's just, I thought, Mom, I told you I wanted her to die in October. So because I could get her soul out of purgatory by November. So my mom's happy, believe me. I know, and I'm very fortunate to have a really great mom. She gave 8 children. She's only was 4'11". And when she got over 100 pounds, she thought she had a diet. We always used to laugh. All his kids were like this. We got our dad's side of the family. So anyway, any questions or anything I could be of help?
I think the message where she said, Jesus is still with you. We all know that.
Yeah.
And she can
Fine. She can't take away sin.
Yeah. Well,
But she brought us the person who can take it away. Her yes is, to me, and I know how Jesus, to me, if the Sahara Desert was Jesus, Mary would be one dream. However, his respect for his mother, God could have came here any way he wanted. Not to show up as an old man. He could have, you know, in 2 weeks he could have gave himself up for forgiveness of sins. What's that? But he wanted to experience the whole thing that we experience on earth, from conception to birth, the whole thing.
What my point was that it puts New Age healing out the window.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they tell you you can heal yourself, and that you have the energy within your own body to heal yourself.
If that was true, we wouldn't have hospitals
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
And if God heals everybody, we wouldn't have hospitals today either. So, yeah, and how long do we ask for, except my mom, 94 years old. I called her on a Sunday. My mom, mine was as sharp as it was when she was young. She remembered everything. Talked to her. She said she'd been having a little difficulty breathing. Talked to my sister, said we're taking her to the doctor in the morning. You know, we think one of her medications, she's on a medication, we think it's bothering her breathing. We'll have them either take it off or use it differently. So they did do that the next day. And after she'd been there for about 20 minutes, they came in and said, your mom is dying. And she went to sleep and never woke up. So it was a blessing. She went the way she wanted. She was a great, super mom. I mean, all those kids have none of us have nothing to complain. So they're going to put her away in May. The University of Washington, she retired from there, and later they contacted her. They wanted to use her brain for research for Alzheimer's because of the memory. Because the memory was so sharp, they're hoping that maybe some chemical or something would be there that, something, but who knows. So the University of Washington they gave us the body now, but they're going to keep the brain. So that was one of her wishes. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Keep up. Don't give up. As hard as this message is, do not give up. Keep fighting. For you who bring people here, God bless you, because I know how hard it is. It's really difficult. I'm going to have some bread now.